Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week on the pod, the title of this pod, actually, I'll say, is Just Do It. We want to talk to you about getting over the hump of having those tough conversations that you've been avoiding.
Yeah, and before we hop all the way into it, we just like to say thank you. If this is your first time checking us out, welcome. If you've been rocking us for a while, we appreciate you coming back. If you'd like to go deeper with this conversation or if anything sticks out to you, please reach out to us on all social media channels searching Marriage is Tougher. Or you can go to marriagestougher.com where we have a contact form that you can fill out. Just scroll to the bottom, fill out the form, get it to us. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, you can fill out that form as well. So again, thank you and welcome. Let's get into this episode.
Yeah. So, just do it. Like Nike says, man, just do it.
Do
But it's
they
not
say
as
that? Do
easy.
they say that anymore? Let's see that. I don't know.
Is that? Do we just show our age?
I think we just aged ourselves, but it's fine.
Fine, whatever. um, it's not as easy as the statement. Um, and I guess my issue with it is we build up these stories in our heads about how everything's going to go if we were to just do it. And there's different perspectives. There's the perspective, which I believe we've spoken about before, where it's like, oh, wow, this is what it's like on the other side of just having the conversation. And then there's my nightmare's coming true. You feel me? So, like,
Yeah.
but then you have to also take ownership of why you're there. And I think that's
Ooh.
where I'm at in my relationship, right? Like, and my wife will say it, like, for 12 years I've asked you to just have these conversations, and the entire time I've been afraid that it's not going to go the way that I want it to go, and have been less concerned about progressing for the greater good, right? It's more, how am I going to feel on the other side of having this conversation? And I would like you to chime in. Should I be more concerned about how she's feeling in the moment? Or is it, do I need to concern myself with, I know we'll both be feeling better once we get through this tough conversation? There's a lot of resistance there, man.
There is, I think you just reminded me something about what Crystal and I were talking about. It was in regards to kind of us and my parents, right? Because I've seen my parents, their dynamic of their relationship be one way, and my mom has been wanting my dad to be more, opinionated and all that stuff. And now that he is, sometimes you can see she doesn't know how to receive it,
Mm.
right? So there's some things that we ask for, and I may have mentioned this on the pod, like there's a way that Crystal kind of speaks, just to make things clear, that's very concise, and some phrasing that she uses that's so that it is respectful, but it's clear. And one day in my, oh, I should actually say something. Let me actually do this thing. I gave her the same language that she gives to everyone else, and she was like, I don't know if I like that. And in my mind, I was like, but that's like I literally verbatim used your words back to you.
Right.
So there's this sense of, since it's new and um, the history, you're not used to receiving something, right? Even if you ask for it, once you get it, you might not know how it affects you. All that to say, since we are talking about just doing it, um, there's a level of care for who you're speaking to. Obviously, it's your wife, you love her.
That part.
And there's the level of growth that you've grown in, which is ultimately something that she's been asking for as well. So there's all these dynamics, but it's more how do we consider, care for, and communicate what we want in a healthy, respectful way. And then you have to let the chips kind of fall where they do, whether it is amazing or it is your nightmare. At least you can say you've done it, but then you have to figure out if it didn't go the most amazing way, how do we make progress? Um, I mean, I'm currently on some things stuck in the just I need to just do it phase.
Mhm.
So so I'm like, man, I just need to step out there and do it. But I'll let you speak because I could ramble on about why my brain is stuck in the just do it.
Yeah. I like the conversation going in the direction of delivery and receipt, right? So when talking about delivery, this is something that we've been asked to do, and I'm not well versed in doing that in within my relationship, right? So I do have to take care in my delivery, especially when it's a concern about something I'm not happy about or I'm concerned about, right? And I have a tendency to let things build up to a point where now I just explode about it, right? Like this. And it sounds very accusatory, which I'm aware of. Um, but I typically explode on it and then try to draw it back,
Hmm.
right? Which isn't fair because
Like that's an interesting model.
right.
How's that working for
It's
you?
not well. And it's not like I try to draw it back as in like, oh, I didn't mean to say that. Let me take that back. It's I try to lighten the delivery,
Hmm.
but like everything's already been exposed.
Yeah.
And again, it just doesn't work that way. Right. So I'm working on number one, having the conversation sooner. And then number two, easing into it in a way where I can still be me and be direct about it, but I have to choose my words carefully. Um, and again, like I said, just make it not seem like I'm accusing you. You're guilty of this. So, would you have any advice on the type of language I could use?
Man. Um, I think it's more depending on the situation, right? But it's
Hmm.
also blanket communication when you're talking with someone, like use the I statements, not the um, use uh, how things are, but also how they made you feel. So like,
Hmm.
and then ask if like if it was something that someone said, you said, man, when I heard that, not when you said that, when I heard that,
Hmm.
this is how it made me feel this way. Was that your intention? Right? Or when I heard that, this is what I thought. This, if you're not doing the what I heard you saying in the moment, if you're coming back to recount, this is what I heard. Was that what you said? Right?
Hmm.
Those type of things where you can um, make it more about you, and there can be clarification. If it's not a something that someone said, if it's an action or something that you want to do together, for me, it's kind of building up the plan of like, even if it's even if it's totally skeleton and you're ready for it to be torn apart, like so that it works well for both of you. But you can say, this is what I was thinking and how we can get to this. What are your thoughts? Or so say it's like, um, say, I say I'm struggling with, you know, being snarky with, everyone. But we're a snarky household, so my wife could say something like, "Hey, we as a household, we really want to represent ourselves the best. You know, Um, I noticed that we've been really kind of snarky with our stuff, and our kids are picking up on that. Like, what are some things we can put in place to do that? For me, I'd like to, maybe just like not speak anything but with positive intent as I'm speaking. What are some ways that you think we could, improve on that? So coming with a plan and being open to talk about it, I think that would be some ways that can help move that along.
Got you. Yeah, man. So one of the things that stuck out to me about what you're saying is, and you didn't put it necessarily in these words, but basically being willing to express that you've been hurt. And I find that is probably difficult for a lot of men, but I find that specifically difficult for me. And that might be a large reason why, my words have been coming out the way they have, because I don't like to show that I've been hurt. Like, I've been taught all of my life not to show that, right? And then compound that with I've been hurt by someone I deeply care about.
Mm-hmm.
And, in a lot of situations, dealing with the fact that I know that I've probably hurt them in some form or fashion as well, makes it, I guess, a little bit more difficult to have that conversation, especially when there's a history of it kind of going back and forth with very, with what I want to say is with little quick progression towards resolution, right? Because it typically has this propensity to go back and forth as far as like, I feel hurt. All right, well, I feel hurt as well. And it's not like, I feel hurt. I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel hurt. I hear you, right? So, good words. I like what you said there.
That is, man, what you just said is really the best way to reconciliation. It's so hard to reconcile you're each if we're each bringing up where we're hurt and not taking the time to hear that the other person was hurt as well, to make them feel seen and valued, and that their hurt wasn't, or that their hurt was valid.
Right.
Right? Even if you don't agree with it, their feelings are what they are. So we can agree that you had those feelings and the part that you played in having those feelings come up. And deciding if those are healthy or not, how you got there. Was that a healthy way or not? Is not necessarily talked about in the moment, but you can circle back for that for sure, depending on your relationship and how, candid you speak about that.
Right.
And I think, yeah, what you point out was so good is that, yeah, I'm hurt. I'm also hurt, but it's the I'm hurt. I hear you. I see you. I acknowledge that you were hurt. Then I'm also hurt. And then the reverse happening. You can't really, it's hard to reconcile if we don't acknowledge the part that we play, even if it's a
Yeah.
small part.
Yeah. And there's a video I was watching the other day that spoke a little bit to this point, right? He was basically trying to explain that when someone is hurt, it is less about facts at that moment, but the fact is that they feel hurt,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can't, especially if your mind works very much logically, right? You can't weigh their hurt against why you think they shouldn't feel hurt.
Hmm.
The fact is that they do feel hurt, and you have to acknowledge that you have received, number one, that they do feel hurt, and sort of, I don't want to say sort of validate, you do have to validate that their feelings are okay to have. I
Mm-hmm.
think you can potentially have a discussion later about, you know, maybe it wasn't your intent to hurt them. It wasn't in your intent to make them feel that way. Um, and you might be have to have a conversation about methodology, right? Like, I did this way because I thought it would produce this result. I know now that that has hurt you, so I apologize for that. In the future, how would you prefer that I do this or that? Right? And usually that's, the words you've used, the type of conversation you've had or whatever. But in that, you are validating, number one, that they have feelings, that you can be empathetic, and you're willing to correct and communicate more efficiently in the future. I think we've kind of got both sides here, right? That delivery and that receipt. And I think that's something I need to work on for sure, is that receipt side of it, which is new to me, right? Because I would typically just get very defensive, especially when I know that I've done something that has hurt you. It was hard for me to, number one, accept that, right? Like, because when you really care about somebody, you don't want to be the one that has hurt them. And when they bring that to you,
Right.
it's hard to accept. So it's being defensive about it is certainly not the way to go about it. But I think that's where I had landed far too many times. And then it's for sure hard to have a conversation about it when you're already defensive, just because, number one, you probably already saw it coming, right? Like, you heard somebody with words or whatever, you see them react and you're like, uh-oh, here it comes. Right? And then maybe it doesn't come for a little while. Maybe they walk away from the situation. So now you're left with a little bit of time to reflect on what it is that you did. And maybe you don't even really know what it was, but you know it's there. So it's hanging. And, not speaking from experience or anything, you
Right.
you hang in that space and you build up your own stories about what this could possibly be. And when you finally circle back around to it, maybe it's better than what you thought, maybe it's worse than what you thought. But you've left that time, like, rather than, and this is where I mess up, rather than going and seeking them out and finding out whether they're ready to talk about it, you just let it hang. And, my wife is like, I wish you would take the first step in resolution sometimes. She's like, I feel like I'm the one that always has to go and chase after you. And she's like, it's not fair to me because I was the one who was hurt. Right. And there's all the signs there. We know it. So, yeah, I'm just putting my life out there.
I don't like that you're writing, you're reading my book right now. I don't like that. And that is me. I've had that conversation for sure, getting better. And trying to work through it. I think that is one of those things that I am doing, or at least I think I'm doing, until it arises again. And then I get to see where I'm at, and I'm failing more than I'm succeeding. And I think it's an interesting thing I was thinking about as you were talking is, since we've just now started doing this, I'm hoping, 5 years from now we'll be better. But I was thinking about being prepared for those, and sometimes experience is the best preparation.
Right.
If I was thinking because, I'm coaching my daughter's softball, and like, they're 10, 11, 12, so they're making errors that once you're a little older, you don't make anymore. But it all comes from experience. It comes from practice. It comes from reps. We don't have those reps in this space. And so we're mucking through, the early stages. But we have to keep at it, and not get discouraged. Literally, I'm looking at, like, softball games of like people just making the wildest errors on instinct and not on knowing what should be done. And some of
Right.
that is, from a coaching perspective, not being able to recreate those scenarios in a controlled setting of practice because we don't have practices once games start. So it's really hard to simulate those situations. So it's like learning on the job, which is basically what we're doing. We're learning in these situations what to do, what not to do. We're failing. We're throwing the ball all over the field, and then just trying to get it back to the pitcher so it can so it can be done. So I think us knowing that we don't have all the answers and we're not prepared, but being able to just start the conversation, um, and to continue to step into it is part of the way that you get better. And I think obviously that goes with the theme of just do it. You just have to keep doing it, even if it sucks, even if it's hard, even if you don't know what the end result will be. And I think that's, as we have stated before, kind of a control issue for us. And it's kind of a pride issue because we've not been as good as we thought we were
Mm-hmm.
or as we think we are. So it's kind of a hit to our pride as well. So there's a lot of kind of aspects that can keep us from doing it or doing it well.
Doing it well.
Yeah, those are my head too.
Yeah, man. It's it's a commitment to being better. And I think we just have to make the decision that, like we've said before, like this is going to be the person I'm going to be. And just rip the band-aid off. I mean, as uncomfortable as it is, I don't know. I tend to know that, well, I tend to feel better after I get something off my chest. And I for sure feel better when I know that she's able to feel comfortable getting stuff off her chest.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's something that I can work on correcting. Right. My wife helps me to be a better man.
Right.
And while I might feel defensive, I have to remember that she's just wanting me to be better. Right? There's nothing selfish about the requests that she makes. There's nothing selfish about what she asks of me. And I have to remember that.
That's it. Well, thanks for playing.
Yeah.
No, that is really it. That's we can end that right there unless you have anything else.
No, that's it, man. I think that's a good way to wrap it. I think we know where we stand, and it's either just making the choice, or well, either way, you're making a choice. You're choosing to do it, or you're choosing not to do it.
And I've said, so choose to do it because not doing it doesn't benefit anybody. Yeah, thanks for checking us out. We appreciate you. If you got any value from this, please share it with someone. Feel free to like the video wherever you, or the podcast wherever you're streaming it from. If you'd like to reach out, if you have more questions, search any social media platform, search Marriage is Tougher, or you can go to our website again, marriageisttougher.com, click out the contact form. Let us know what your thoughts are, or if you'd like to be a guest, fill it out, and we will reach out back to you. So thanks for hanging out with us, and we will get with you next time.
Peace.